I want to thank everyone for being here today. To Maddie and to Chris Abel, a great big thank you to you guys for getting this done today. Again, DCNR and the Invasive Species Council, Department of Ag, Fish and Boat, Game Commission, they've all been at this quite a while. And so this is a very special day today. It seems like something that has come to fruition that we thought might happen years ago, but here we are now. We've got now an official Native Species Day on the 20th of May as well. And I guess I would be remiss if I didn't say that for myself and Secretary Dunn, this is kind of, like I said, a deja vu. Back in 2015, when I got to this position as Deputy Secretary at the Department of Ag, I was asked to serve on the Green Ribbon Task Force. And one of the results of that was that there was a need for special attention to invasive species going forward for the state. And so I feel that, again, we have come full circle on that, especially for Secretary Dunn and myself, that we've watched this go to a place where we have now citizens that are definitely aware of what's going on. Years ago, 10 years ago or so, people weren't quite as in tune with invasive species. Today, we have Invasive Species Council meetings, and I told Chris earlier, at a time there might have been, just the council members on. Today, there's anywhere from 70 to 80 people around the state that are now involved in those meetings. And so, again, kudos to what everybody has done, all the partnerships that we have, from the Penn State Extension to the conservancies, to the conservation districts. This is a team play. And again, without them, it doesn't go any further. To the legislature for allowing the Controlled Plant and Noxious Weed Act to be passed back in 2017. Again, another turning point in an emphasis around noxious weeds and invasives. So again, just really pleased with where we are today. It gives me, again, great pleasure to be here. As I said, my name is Fred Strathmeyer. I'm Deputy Secretary of Ag. My background is in Christmas trees, so I've dealt with invasives a long time. And as many of you that are here today, and I want to make sure to thank the citizens of the state of Pennsylvania. This is a sold out event, not just here in Carlisle, but across the state. So obviously a success. And again, to Chris, to Maddie, and everybody that's been involved, kudos to the volunteers, because again, I know that this doesn't happen without volunteers. So we appreciate your time and efforts. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Secretary Dunn and thank her for being here as well. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Fred.
Yep.
Thanks to be here. Thanks, Fred. It's wonderful to be here. This is something I'm very passionate about myself. My hands by the end of the weekend will be dirty, and the fingernails will be muddy again, and they'll be broken, and my fingers will be cut up from the invasive species. But this event shows what's possible when organizations and businesses and government entities and corporations come together to solve a big ecological problem in Pennsylvania. Besides the agencies that are represented up here, the numerous land conservancies, county conservation districts, many nonprofits are so critical to this. And I do want to toss out a thanks to our legislature. Barb Glime's here, Senator Rothman's office is here. Without them, agencies are not funded to do the good work that we do. And to raise awareness about this, their role is very key and very important. The Governor's Invasive Species Task Force brings together the expertise from around the agencies to really understand and focus on what needs to be done. And I know, speaking for DCNR, and I'm very proud of our DCNR team here, you'll see their logos, and please meet them. But if you ask our staff what they consider to be the most imminent threat to the forest and our ecosystems, invasive species are what most of our foresters were mentioned as a top issue. And I know from Derek Eberly, our Governor's Sportsman Advisor, he hears from sportsmen, we hear from everybody who's spending any time at all out in an ecosystem, that invasive species are a big problem. Native species are the foundation of a healthy ecosystem in Pennsylvania. And I think many of us really have had the joy of experiencing healthy ecosystems where the native plants, native birds, native species are thriving, where the pollinators and the plants are in harmony, where everything is working as it should. And those habitats are becoming more and more rare, and more we have to work to achieve that through hard work. It's no longer enough to let a tract of land just be alone and assume the right thing's going to happen. It requires a focused management, a focused coordination, strong science, and a lot of action. Our native plants, our pollinators, our birds, our wildlife are all adapted to Pennsylvania's soils, Pennsylvania's climate, Pennsylvania's interaction between plants, animals, soil. And our agriculture depends on it. Our forest systems, the forest industry depends on it. Recreation, the beauty of our backyards, the beauty of our properties, all are part of this. So it's critically important, and I think it's wonderful that we have, a day that celebrates native plants. In DCNR, we lead the effort on the plants of Pennsylvania. It's one of our stated missions and goals as part of our mission when we were formed back in 1995, 30 years ago, July 1. Plants were specifically called out in the forests of Pennsylvania, not just the forests that are in DCNR management, the forests of Pennsylvania and all the plants of Pennsylvania are part of our official mission. So we take this issue very seriously in DCNR. And we provide expert guidance in every county through our service foresters. Every county has an assigned service forester who's there to really help private landowners and help nonprofits to help advise on issues of native plants and forests. And most excitingly, a couple of years ago, the legislature gave us something called the Keystone Tree Fund. And if you've registered an automobile, you notice you can put $3 extra into something called the Keystone Tree Fund. And we use that to plant buffers. We use that for community urban forestry. That's the stated purpose of that. Well, the great news today is that we're announcing that you can now get online and donate to it. Just get on and donate. And I did that to test it earlier this week. One of our retirees, a dear friend, Roy Seifert, passed away unexpectedly. So I decided to make a donation in honor of Roy Seifert. And it went through very smoothly. I'm not adept at these things. It went through very smoothly. And you're able to make an online donation. So we see this online donation as something that will fuel our work on native plants and on trees and forests, and it'll allow us to raise money. We need to raise money for things like the Michaud wildfire. Thank you to all in the room here that were helpful in that. But there'll be a habitat restoration underway that will include some riparian areas, such as Thompson Run. So stay tuned on that. But there's a good way for you to help generate funding. The Lawn to Habitat program, again, I think we all know monoculture lawn is not doing much for anything except perhaps the aesthetic value and maybe a play space for people. But conversion to pollinators and conversion to natural habitats does wonders for biota in Pennsylvania. So educating people on perhaps taking a piece of that lawn and then turning it into a pollinator garden or perhaps planting trees is really valuable. So today's all about collaboration. This shows what we can do when we all work together, and it's not just the players in this room, like the Department of Ag, the Game Commission, the Fish and Boat Commission, but it's also PennDOT. It's also the Turnpike Commission, Penn State Extension, Pennsylvania Sea Grant, Western Pennsylvania Conservancy, Pennsylvania Native Plant Society, and the Pennsylvania Landscape and Nursery Association. All these organizations and many more are players in this work. I was just at a recent conference of the land trust. It's called We Conserve. There are 80 land trusts. Their volunteers, their board members were represented. And there's a growing body of what I'd call invasive warriors out there. There were a lot of young people attending the conference, and they're energetic and they're going after those invasives. So again, we're all out there doing our share, but there's people really trained up and educated and out there on the ground leading this work, and it's pretty amazing. So special thanks to all the volunteers who take care of their own habitat and help take care of the public lands habitats out there. So again, the strong turnout, the sign-ups for this invasive replace-ive is just one indicator of the public appetite and understanding of how important this issue is. So Native Species Day is May 20th. It's just one day, but at DCNR, we consider every day to be Native Plants Day as part of our mission, part of what we're doing. We're hoping everybody celebrates in some manner and we get out there, enjoy your native plants, enjoy your native biota. Look for some native birds coming back from migration, fish for a native fish, and perhaps release it. But anyway, have a chance, take a chance to spend a little time and appreciate Pennsylvania's native species. So let's keep replacing invasives, keep planting trees, keep planting natives, and one plant at a time will make the ecosystem better. And so with that, I'll introduce my good friend, Tim Schaefer, who's Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. Tim and I have known each other for a couple decades. Tim is a avid angler, also an avid birder, and avid ecologist. For that, Tim Schaefer.
Great. Thanks, Cindy. And you'll be Cindy will be proud. I went to a Senators game a couple weeks ago, and I used to park on City Island, and there was always an oriole that nested in this one tree. And I'm not as good of a birder as she is, but I'm like, I think that's an oriole. My wife said, there's no way you can recognize that. And our friend showed up, and we're standing there in the parking lot on City Island, four of us looking up at this tree. All the baseball fans are going by, and wouldn't you know, an oriole pops out of that tree. So that was, and I said I had to tell Cindy about that. So in Pennsylvania, we have nearly 200 species of native fish. We have nearly 40 native reptiles and about 40 native amphibians. And you may say, why's the Fish and Boat Commission up here? What do we care about native plants as it relates to fish? Well, not only do native plants along streams, waterways, and lakes provide shading, help to control runoff and erosion, and improve water quality, those native plant materials really are the basis of the food chain, and the fish and the other aquatic organisms that are in the streams need them to survive. And when invasives material drop in, it's like junk food for fish. That's one thing our staff always say. Those other materials, and I see our friends at DCNR nodding their heads, the non-native materials are junk food for fish, and they really don't have nutritional value. So if you want to have a thriving aquatic community, you need to have the basis of the food chain there, which is why we're working throughout Pennsylvania, but notably here in the Chesapeake watershed a lot on stream restoration works. Was really happy to join DCNR, the Department of Agriculture, DEP, Senator Martin, and others last spring up in Union County, where because of the native plantings that were put in along the stream and the stream restoration work that was done, a couple of tributaries to Turtle Creek were actually taken off of the list of impaired waterways. And so those waterways went from red to blue. And as we all help to try to work downstream with the Chesapeake Bay issues, native plants are playing a big role in that. And it was really cool standing on a bridge with the farmer there and looking at the native turtle species that are coming back into Turtle Creek as a result of what was done. That was a really cool day. But on our own property, Cindy and I were together last fall at our Mahantongo access. If you drive up Susquehanna River, just as you go into Snyder County, planted about 300 native trees and shrubs there. We have areas that that have been boat ramps forever and these big fields, and I said, well, why are we mowing over there? There's no parking there, so we're doing as much as work as we can as to sort of right size the habitat there on our own properties. Would encourage other if there are municipalities here that have spaces along creeks and waterways, and maybe you have your own boat ramp that you're not using part of it, think about planting some trees there. In Cumberland County, and Cindy and I are both Cumberland County residents, along the Conneaguinna Creek watershed, Conneaguinna Creek. Last spring, joined the Conneaguinna Creek Watershed Association. Cheryl Delosier, Barb's colleague from Cumberland County, joined us to plant some native plants there that'll help with water quality in the watershed, as well as provide that native plant material. Another thing that our agency's done, and just last year, and worked closely with Chris and others at the Invasive Species Council, up until last year, Pennsylvania was the only state in the Northeast and one of the few states in the country where there was no paper trail at all for stocking fish and no disease requirements for stocking fish. So we, working with our Board of Commissioners, established something called our Notice of Stocking, and found out about nearly 200 stocking events, 200 notices of stocking for about 4,000 events that now have some teeth to it and need to make sure that any fish that are going in are disease-free. So that was a really big step in the right direction. That same regulation package also beefed up the teeth for making sure that boats aren't a vector for invasive species, so you can no longer have visible water in your boat. You have to make sure that those holes are clean, no visible vegetation on the motors of the boat. So for moving hydrilla and other native species around, that can help to control that. And then at our facilities as well, and we really follow DCNR's lead on this, we're starting to put aquatic invasive species composting stations in at our facilities. Have a whole list, but I noted that Opossum Lake here in Cumberland County is one of those facilities where if you've got something that's been attached to your boat, you can dispose of it right there and not take it to the next water body. So again, think of that junk food for fish. If you like to fish in Pennsylvania and you like healthy streams, don't be chucking Twinkies in the stream. We'd rather have some nice healthy
Twinkies.
That's right. Eat the Twinkies yourself, but don't put something in there that doesn't have the nutritional value for fish. So great to be here today. I'm sorry I did not sign up as a Cumberland County resident to get some of my own native plants to take home, but know that I have plenty in my yard in New Cumberland. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tim for the Game Commission.
Thanks, Tim. Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks to Secretary Dunn, and thank you to the at DCNR and to the Invasive Species Council for hosting an event like this. It's very uplifting for me to see how popular this event is and how engaged the public is in really wanting to eliminate invasive species and get native species out there on the landscape. So as far as the Game Commission goes, we cover birds and mammals, and we have 480 bird and mammal species out there in the state. And they all depend on healthy native habitats. So think of healthy forests, healthy grasslands, healthy wetlands. They need healthy native species out there to survive and thrive. At the Game Commission, we own 1.6 million acres, and we do quite a bit of investment in habitat management work out there promoting native species. We have an active forest management program through timber sales and non-commercial work that we do out there. We do quite a bit of prescribed fire. I think we did about 10,000 acres last year for some context. And then we're very active with our grasslands and our wetlands management out there as well. But wildlife don't adhere to jurisdictional boundaries. So we have our 1.6 million acres. Of course, DCNR has their 2.2 million acres thereabouts. So we need help from other public partners out there, federal lands, other state lands, and of course from the public on their private lands. So most of Pennsylvania is private lands. So we need your help. So as far as this event goes, planting native plants ties very well into our 6 things you can do for wildlife campaign that we have at the Game Commission. So planting native plants is actually the second thing on that list. So again, glad to see the popularity of this event and people taking advantage of that. The other 5 things that go along with that is basically let wildlife be wild, consider installing a nest box, create leaf and brush piles for additional habitat, secure your food and garbage and recycling so the animals don't get into that, and slow the mow. So Tim talked about that as well. So if you have lawn area that you can let go for a little bit in the spring and into the early summer, that's going to promote native plants, native wildflowers blooming, and it's also going to give birds and other species like rabbits and so forth to places to nest and raise their young in the early summer. Encourage you to go to the PGC website to check out that 6 things you can do for wildlife for more information. And I just want to thank everybody in the room, thank everybody that's taken advantage of this program and their help in supporting wildlife and their habitats for current and future generations. So thank you.
Let's take questions.
Yeah, are there any questions? No? Well, thank you.
Anybody?
How hot are the composting facilities for the aquatic invasives?
How hot are they, like being used?
I mean, like what's the temperature that is required?
Oh no, we collect them and then we actually collect them there and then remove them. I'm not sure where they compost them, but it's just a collection spot for them.
Huge deer and there's big skulls. I do know. And the 2 ear tags were scattered right there. Just was a tag deer.
Go to a place where we have now citizens that are definitely aware, in tune with invasive species. Today we have invasive species council on. Today there's anywhere from 70 to 80 people around the state that are now involved. The Noxious Weed Act to be passed back in 2017. Again, another turning point in an emphasis around noxious weeds. Pleasure to be here. As I said, my name is Fred Strathmeyer. Deputy Secretary of Ag. My
Task force brings together the expertise from around the agencies to really understand and focus on what needs to be done. And I know speaking for wildlife, we're all adapted to Pennsylvania's soils, Pennsylvania's climate, Pennsylvania's interaction between plants.
Yeah, and then if you'd like a native species brochure, we have one. Laid out and got some. I mean, out one's got some narrow
Well, this goes until 6, but